In the tight-knit village of Dingle, Ireland, there's nothing worse than a stranger, especially one in the form of a detective inspector. As D.I. Cormac O'Brien clashes with the wealthiest family in town, a twice-disgraced veterinarian returns to find her home in shambles and long buried secrets coming back to life. All this and more await you in No Strangers Here, book one of a County Kerry novel series by best-selling author Carlene O'Connor. Welcome to Blackbird Writers Presents Author Interviews. I'm Sharon Lynn, and welcome to you, Carlene.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here on a Friday.
I'm so excited that you could make it. So we're just going to jump right in. You obviously have quite a few books, and gosh, they're all great. I've just really been enjoying going into your back catalog, and it was like, oh wow, I didn't know about this series, and now I have a new series. So, your County Kerry series. This is the No Strangers Here is the first book in that series. The second book has come out, but it's your third series set in Ireland. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I have the long-running Irish Village, and then a shorter series called Home to Ireland. And then this is the new, and this will also be a longer one, the County Kerry Mysteries.
That is so exciting. So how does this one differ in tone than the other two?
Well, my first two series are in the genre of cozy mysteries. So if you're not familiar with cozy mysteries, are usually small town, and a lot of the violence and gore, sexual themes are off the page, and it's more about the puzzle and the whodunit. So you're under some, I would say maybe some PG constraints with cozy mysteries, and they're a lot of fun. But this one kind of takes all the constraints off, because this is not a cozy, this is a darker mystery, kind of getting into the mystery suspense genre.
Yeah. It is definitely a page turner, can't put down. And I say that, but I also could not. I read Murder in an Irish Village, which is, I believe, the first of that series, and I also could not put that down. So I love them. All right, so for No Strangers Here, you have 2 points of view. So you have D.I. Cormac O'Brien and the veterinarian Dimpna, which is really fascinating. So we have kind of the police procedural in one camp, and then the what's happening in my little village that I haven't been to in ages in the other camp. And I really love both of the characters. Will they appear in the rest of the novels or any of the other novels?
Absolutely. Yeah, they're still going to be the main two protagonists in both of them. I do slip into other people's point of views, but they're not the main players, but for sure, at least up until now, book 3, it's still mainly them kind of controlling the narrative.
And they are both so much fun, so interesting. Like, no, I don't want to leave Dimpna. Oh yeah, but now I just want to spend time with Cormac. No, now I want to go. Yeah. It's just beautifully woven together. So Dimpna is this just tiny little elf of a creature, and I love her. She's wicked smart and just infinitely resourceful, and I'm wondering if you had any inspiration, either a veterinarian or a real person, for this character.
Yeah, well, the first thing I will admit is that I took a look at my protagonist from the long-running Irish Village, Siobhan O'Sullivan, and she's 22. She's really tall, red hair, feisty, and I wanted to build an opposite so that there's no even though it's cozy and darker. Actually, originally this was supposed to be a cozy series, so it's a kind of a fun but probably longer story how that happened, how it changed to a darker mystery. but when I thought it was going to be a cozy, I wanted to separate the series and make sure that there's no overlap. So I wanted to build in opposites between Dimpna Wilde and Siobhan O'Sullivan. So I thought, okay, some easy opposites to make, Dimpna's older, she's 45 when the first book opens. Siobhan's really tall. I'll make her really short. And then I thought, well, let's make, kind of that more of a character, element trait of Dimpna. And then because she's, so small in stature, not only that, it's already facing a lot of discrimination being a female veterinarian, which I was told actually by the male veterinarian in Ireland that I had the pleasure to speak with multiple times, that there is a lot of discrimination towards female vets still in Ireland. And ironically, some of it comes from women. Like women at farmers will call them up and say, don't send a female vet, like when they want a veterinarian to come out. So I thought, okay, I love that. And she's also facing then, okay, not only is she female and facing that discrimination, but because of her size, she's going to be facing that. So I knew her personality had to be strong enough to like stand up to all of this and be able to just do her job, so it kind of started with that. And then, since Siobhan has red hair and, I was born with like platinum blonde hair, and my grandfather like said to my mother, is her hair going to stay that color? And she's like, I have no idea. And it didn't, but I gave Dimpna that trait, that her hair stayed that platinum blonde. And then she just kind of started evolving from there. And I started with her name. An Irish friend of mine had posted something on Facebook to her friend Dimpna, and I'm like, oh, I love that. And then I loved the last name Wilde because, first of all, they take care of animals, both domestic and wild, but also because, her spirit is a little bit wild. So that's a little bit about how her character started.
Yeah, she is just enchanting. And I love the short and feisty. Being rather short myself, not that short, but still, you're growing up and your brothers are 6 feet too, they pat you on the head.
Yeah.
So actually, and that leads us, beautiful segue into, I'd like to hear a little bit more about the veterinarian you interviewed for the various, when you're a vet, apparently like 80% of the time it's going to be an emergency. So tell us some of the stories you learned from this vet.
Yeah, so I had first read his memoir because I thought, I'm not a veterinarian, I'm going to have a lot to learn. I knew that was going to be an integral part of the life of my character. So I thought, well, I have to learn enough to be believable. So to me, the easiest way to get into that, I bought a huge like medical veterinarian book, and I'm like, this is not going to help me whatsoever. So I started reading memoirs I specifically looked to see if there were any memoirs by Irish veterinarians. And lo and behold, it was called Whiskers, Feathers and Fur by Austin Donnelly. He's a fantastic writer. And not only that, like the village, that he worked in Ireland, like it just came to life through his book. I wanted to be there. And I thought to myself, yes, I want this with murder, right? So because he was a writer, I thought, well, maybe he'll be kind of receptive to, a crazy author emailing him. And I had I already knew I kind of wanted a veterinarian medication to be involved in the mystery. And so I had researched, just Googling veterinarian medicines. And I sent him this list. First, I said, are you willing to talk to me in this and that? And I sent him this list and I said, would any of these medications kill a human being? And you just hope they're not going to think you're totally insane, right? But I think as a writer, he totally got into the spirit of it. And he's like, oh yeah, that'll kill a man, but you need 50 milliliters. And then he's like, if you really want to put the fear of God into people. And I'm like, I do. And then he went on to tell me about this obscure medication that is illegal now. But he said, but old timey vets would still have it on their shelf. So and that's kind of completely transformed the plot. I was just at the beginning of plotting, and it really helped inform the mystery. And I just felt so fortunate. And anytime I email him now and ask a question, I try not to overburden him. I don't make him read the book or read scenes. I just, ask questions, and he always gets back to me and is so lovely about it. So that was really thrilling to me.
Oh, that is wonderful. Yeah. because I know a couple of veterinarians, and yeah, they're
busy.
they are always busy. They are always, okay, I can relax. Oh no, somebody's in trouble.
Yeah.
But they're animals, they're always in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that comes
And
across.
then I recently had an American veterinarian message me on Instagram, and she's like, I had just gone to Ireland and I read your book and I saw the acknowledgement, because I acknowledge, the profession of veterinarians, and she loved the book. And that was kind of like another, okay, that feels good, to have, she wasn't writing me to point out mistakes I made, but just to say that she enjoyed the mystery, so that was nice.
Which is kind.
Yeah.
that kind is better, definitely.
They both happen, but it's nice when you get.
All right, so when we're in the detective inspector's point of view, the book does take on kind of a police procedural aspect, because he is obviously a policeman. So in the United States, we have the Writers Police Academy, where the writers can go and talk to policemen and find out all kinds of things. For Ireland, who did you talk to? What resources did you employ? I think we talked about this when we were at BoucherCon, but
yeah,
I just
it's a little bit more challenging for me. Yeah, with the first book in the Irish Village series, I did have a friend who knew a Garda, and so he talked to him. He said, okay, I'd be willing to talk to her on the phone. Had a phone call with him, and I had my list of questions of things I couldn't find from Googling, and going to An Garda Síochána has a website, and they have a media department, so I can email them questions. But I really wanted to talk to somebody, and so we had maybe about a 20-minute phone call, and he answered all my questions. But the very funny thing is, I said, oh, I'd like to put your name in the acknowledgements. Oh, no, like, he did not want his name in the acknowledgements. So there's a little bit more of a down low aspect, or we don't talk about our business, or but the procedures are very different. So of course I have had to do research, and murders don't happen as frequently in Ireland as they do here. So there's not this big police academy that's willing to teach writers about what's going on. So I kind of have to piece it together through talking to as many people as willing to talk to me, and going to the website and emailing the press department at An Garda Síochána with questions.
Well, it's nice that the press department responded. When I was doing research, I got nothing, and I finally wound up talking to retired policemen, and the retired policemen, they are a chatty bunch. They're just fantastic.
Yeah. I was also lucky that the Office of State Pathology, who they've got to be very busy too, they got back to me with a question, because after I talked to the veterinarian, I thought, well, a state pathologist wouldn't know to look for these things, right? So would there be markers or this or that? So I emailed her, and within 2 days she emailed me back, and she's like the top state pathologist in Ireland. So Irish people are just so gracious, that they do get back to you. I also had to message there's a national forestry department, and I had a question about the national forest there for the second book, and they got back. They were a little bit like, oh yeah, well, go look here, go look at this site, but they still got back to me. So that is always thrilling.
Yeah, there are, like, when you're a national forest kind of an organization, your website is really robust. When you're the police, they're like, no, we don't want people to know that.
Yeah. So I also, subscribe to the Irish Times, and anytime there's any article on murder investigation, I'm combing through that, and, just kind of getting the lay of what procedures they talk about in the articles and terms they use and things like that. So
that's a great idea. Yeah, but it is just there aren't as many bodies dropping as
thankfully. Yeah, that's the part where you have to use your fiction license, right? Your creative license as a writer.
Yeah. Yeah, and part of that is, and I don't know if this is true in Ireland, but there's most people don't have guns. Is that
Yeah, the police, yes, exactly. And the police force even do not carry guns unless you're a detective, sergeant, and above. So Cormac O'Brien, as a detective inspector, he would carry a gun, but your regular Garda force, they're guardians of the peace, they would have a baton, things like that, but they do not carry guns. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just such a different mindset when you're like, oh, he'll be okay. He's got going in there, he's got a gun, but he doesn't. And
Yeah.
he doesn't know what he's walking into. And yeah, it's just it actually creates quite a wonderful level of tension that is very almost opposite from a United States procedural.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. All right, so when you visit these villages, because you do just make them come alive in these novels, so we as readers feel really immersed in these lovely villages, and I'm actually gonna go to Dublin in May and start like just looking around and seeing all these places that you mentioned. But do you let people in these tiny villages know that you're going to start dumping dead bodies?
Well, that's actually why I fictionalized Kilbane in the Irish Village Mysteries. For Dingle, no, and it's a bigger town, and I don't have as many contacts there as I did in Kilmallock. I renamed the village Kilbane. I moved it from County Limerick up the border to County Cork, just so they wouldn't get mad. But they did know I was writing a murder mystery series, and I did base the first book on a lot of the people I knew there. But of course, then I, just borrowed parts of their personality, their professions for the book, and they knew I was doing this. But the funny thing is the one of my close friends there did not know he or she was the killer in Irish Village. And it wasn't until like years later, I was sitting in a pub with him on New Year's Eve in Ireland, and the person turns to me, and just casually says, "Hope I'm not the killer in any of your other books." So that was a very funny moment, but the person took it with, humor, like the Irish do. So, and the funny thing is I was nervous, but recently, so my books are now published in the UK, and although Ireland is not the UK, those books are available in Ireland. They're starting to be in Irish bookstores and libraries, something I actually never imagined happening. And recently, two different friends of mine in Ireland, they know each other, but these were separate instances, were in person with friends of theirs who happened to pull out one of my Irish Village Mysteries and say, "Oh, hey, I think you'd really like this book," having no clue that they were friends with me and that my real name was Mary and that I live in the States. So, and they were thrilled. And then, one kind of argued like, "No, this is written by Carlene O'Connor." She's like, "No, I know her. That's my friend." And so it's just those two instances have been really thrilling to me. And it feels like I passed a bit of a test because, I think they read them assuming, I was, Irish living in Ireland. And so that's kind of made me very grateful too, that, not only do I have friends there, but they have, that they have been welcoming about it.
That is just so amazing. So you mentioned something there that, Ireland is not part of the UK, but Northern Ireland is, and there's, still a little tension. It's a tiny little island. There's still a little tension between Northern Ireland and Ireland. Does that ever make its way into your novels?
Only, I think, in a couple novels, and there may have been subtle references or subtle relationships, with a character that may, a couple times in the Irish Village, I've had characters, over from London. Definitely, it's not heavy hitting in the cozy mystery series, because it is, a deep and darker subject. And my great grandmother came over from Ballymena, which is Northern Ireland, but when she came over to the States, Ireland was still all, one country. But of course, even where she lived, there was a separation between Catholic and Protestants, even before the Troubles started. So that tension is long running, has been there for a long time. So I think that if I ever do introduce it into the darker series, it would be a very slow process for me of, being very, diligent with doing my homework and understanding the sensitivities. And, because even in my own maternal family line that came over from Ireland, there were talk about it and there were stories about it and there was resentment and, very strong opinions, which, kind of then got passed on to me and then realizing, okay, I don't live there, I'm not part of it. And since then, I do have friends that grew up in Northern Ireland, and I hear their stories of, what it was like to grow up there during, troubles. And so I would be very careful approaching, that subject. And so I have not tackled it on any real level at this point.
Yeah, it's whenever you kind of veer into politics, it's got to be, especially when they're not, your own politics.
But I will say, a lot of Irish music, they have rebel songs, that are songs about wanting to go back to United Ireland. And the first time I went to Ireland with my Irish boyfriend, as the plane was landing, I started crying, just seeing Ireland for the first time and having grown up with the stories and kind of the mythology and everything passed down in a way. And so I started crying, and my boyfriend just turns to me and he goes, "If you start singing rebel songs, I'm out of here." He was just like, "What is this crazy American girl doing crying for the first time?" I thought that was funny.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you're what people in really old countries like Europe and UK and all that, what they don't understand sometimes is how new our country is. It's like I live in Arizona. It wasn't a state until like 1914 or 1912, one of the two, I forget. And it's like if we have a structure that's over 300-400 years old, it's going to be a cliff dwelling. And but we have these ties back to Europe, so when we get there, it's just so overwhelming, and they're like, "We want new stuff," and it's like, "No, you don't. You want the old stuff."
Yeah.
No,
I know there is kind of a skepticism, and of course, there are the typical stereotypical Americans that go over there and, they're like, "I'm Irish." And they're like, "Oh, really? Where are you from?" And like, "Texas,"
Yeah.
So, there is an interesting, sensitivity with that as well. I no longer shout like, "Oh, I'm Irish." I'm very aware that, I'm Irish American, but I'm not going to go start claiming things,
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, it's like, yeah, I have a great grandmother who was from Ireland, but I also have one who was from Scotland, and then the Germans, and then the Bavarians, and then
yeah. We did a DNA test and it was 74%, but it's, they don't separate Irish from Scotland, Wales, UK with those DNA tests. And definitely we also have family. On my dad's side, there was family from Ireland, but also, as you said, there was Scottish and, but we're mostly from that area. But yeah, you've got to be careful, going there and saying at the top of your lungs, "You're Irish,"
That's like,
could rub some people the wrong way.
Now I can hear your accent.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so as I mentioned at the beginning of this, and you mentioned, you have the Irish Village series is long running, and this one is going to be long running. Some of Us Are Looking has been released, and you've got it right there behind you. What is next for you? What is next for these characters? Where are we going from here?
I'm in the thick of it right now with book 3. I really took on the biggest plot I've ever taken on. So I'm spinning plates at the moment. I'm a little bit panicked, but I always do, my utmost best to get it where I need it to be. This one's called You Have Gone Too Far. And I may have gone too far with the plot. So we're still, it's due January 1st, although I'm already negotiating, delaying that deadline a little bit. So that will be next. And then as far as the Irish Village, in February, Murder at an Irish Tipper comes out. Will be the 10th installment in the Irish Village.
Awesome. And all of these are released ebook, trade paperback,
audiobook,
audio, and hardbound?
Oh yeah, and hardback. So normally the hardback comes out first, but with Some of Us Are Looking, Barnes and Noble arranged an exclusive paperback edition. And so Barnes and Noble actually does have a paperback version of Some of Us Are Looking, and everybody else won't get it until next year.
Nice, excellent. Yeah. And finally, where can our fans find you?
Yeah. CarleneO'Connor.net, which I do have to update, but I also have a newsletter on there. I'm on Facebook, Carlene O'Connor Mysteries on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram at Chai Writer. I think I used to live in Chicago, so I just moved, so it's
something
Chai
like
Writer
that.
Girl. Yeah, Chai Writer Girl on Instagram. I think if you do hashtag Carlene O'Connor, you'll find my account there. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. And I look forward to reading all of these. And I just want to say I've listened to the audio of No Strangers Here as well. And your reader is fantastic. Just great performances. So much so that I just like drove right past an exit that I was supposed to take.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Like,
Emily
no.
O'Mahony. Yeah, she's a lovely girl too. I was able to listen to a few, different snippets of readers, and I picked her, right away from it. To me, she just had, what I was looking for in the reader for the book. So
Yeah, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you again so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.